I'm doing something a little different. You know, I like to switch it up all the time. So this is more like one of the videos I would do for YouTube. And unfortunately, I know I won't be able to save this, so I'm going to have to redo it all later. But I figured, in case anybody is out there and they got questions and they're around at this time when I'm doing this live, you know, hop on, ask the question. I'll see what I can do for you. So basically, it goes a little like this. I realize that what's happening is that there are people in this world that will receive a message from God, from Source, whatever you want to call it, whatever being or spirituality you follow. There are people that do get messages from that source, and they follow the messages. And there are other people who are, even though they're religious, they don't exactly get those messages. Not that they're not getting them, not that they're not coming through. It's that they're not getting them, they're not hearing them, they're not listening, they're not following, they're not seeing the signs, they're not putting the messages together, okay? So this has been a big realization for me, that with me, I finally heard from Source who I was meant to be with as a person. And I was like, okay, well, that's really interesting. Because, you know, you've been with other people, but you've never heard the calling, right? You're following your logic, you're following your heart, you're following whatever at that time. But if you actually had tuned in, prayed, tuned in, whatever word you want to call it, to Source, to the Lord, to whatever religious being or whatever that you follow, you would have received messages that yes, this person is meant for you, or no, they're not meant for you. So now I had this information that this person was meant to be my life partner. The struggle with that, or the challenge with that, is just because you received the message doesn't mean that your other person, like I said, listens, gets it, or whatever. So you could be over here with the conviction, knowing for sure that this is meant to be, and they don't. So I'm going to show you a little diagram, okay? So here's my old manifesting this person into my life, trying to make them realize that, you know, we're meant to be together, right? You can only manifest and put so much effort in, and then, you know, at some point you have to realize that this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to work. They're not getting the same messages that you're getting, right? So now I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. They didn't get the same message I got. So they're never going to figure it out, which means now you have to come to the acceptance that you're never going to be in a relationship with the person that God intends you to be with, because in this life, everybody has free will to do what they please. So now you've got this knowing, you've got this realization that it's never going to happen, right? So now you're like, step one, okay, I know. Step two, I realize. Now, the third step from there is acceptance, because now you've got to accept the fact that you know that you're meant to be with this person. They don't realize it. You realize it's never going to happen. So now you have to accept that. So that's step 3. Okay, so we're at step 3. So now my question was, I'm like, well, that's fucking interesting. So here's you. I'm going to draw this, right? Here's you, right? And here's your other person. And together, you're meant to be this. This is the worst diagram I've ever done. Maybe I shouldn't have done it on a live. But now, that's not going to happen. So now what's going to happen is you're actually going to end up with this. Actually, let's just turn it around. No, can't do that. Okay. This is the original. This is originally you. Okay? This is you. This is your person that you're meant to be with. This is the combination of you and the person, obviously, that you're meant to be with. But you know this isn't going to happen, right? So let's just scribble that off. That's a dead scenario. So I was like, okay, Source, what happens now? If I know now this is the case, that I'm not going to be and end up with the person that you're intending me to be, what happens now? Like, who do I end up with? The answer is you, because remember, this is you, right? You end up with another person whose person didn't get the message from God, from Source, from your religious whatever. You end up with another person whose person didn't follow the messages. So although you guys weren't intended to be together, you guys end up together because you both got the message from Source. You both got the message from God. You both got the message from your higher being, but yet your person didn't get that message. So you end up with somebody else. You end up with whoever else got the message, but ends up not being with the person that they're intended to be with. So that, my friends, is what I came on to tell you. It's an interesting, it's a real interesting dynamic and process to go through. Okay? So if you have any questions, you know where to get me.